In August of 1990, we all heard in the news that Saddam Hussein had invaded Kuwait. The president and his partner said that's not going to stand. And for months they started buildups, and after the first of the year, the Gulf War started. And I know we all remember watching it on TV as the Air Force dropped strategic laser-guided bombs through doors and windows. Pretty impressive stuff. But the bottom line is we know that wars are fought on the ground. We've been there. We know what it's like. I had the honor this evening of introducing Marines from the 8th Tank Battalion that punched through the lines in the mines, and they're going to tell you their story of success. So it is an honor that I introduce to you the commanding officer of 8th Tank Battalion, Colonel Cavallero, his S4 officer, Colonel Ahern, and Sergeant Major Adams.
Really got it on a stage so we can see you.
Who do you want to stand? I'm here? Yep.
I want you to stand up.
I am standing. That's a cucumber. Man, no, God. Look at it. I had all kinds of stuff. I was up all night about it. I can't talk from an outline. I just can't do this. Especially when I'm facing honorable men and women who served their country so honorably 40 years ago in Vietnam and throughout our country's history. It's an honor to be here, and I thank Top Van Appledorn, and I thank Sergeant Rear for inviting myself and my crew. Now, listen, I'm no dummy. I went to high school for 15 years. When I walked across the stage, Dr. Francis, in all his glory, shook my hand. He says, "I got a stipulation." I said, "Well, what?" He says, "But I said, what's the stipulation?" He goes, "It's a promise." He says, "You get this diploma, but you can't visit." I said, "You got a deal. I'm out of here." And the rest is history. What it is I'm not a dummy because I got two guys here behind me who, along with 1,017 other Marines and 17 sailors, made me look good 31 years ago. 31 years ago, it's been a fable. It's a rock and roll fable. It's a wartime fable. We were not supposed to do what we did over there. And what we did was epic. Where's that first slide of where we are from? We have 4 states. Yeah, I know where I'm from. But the guys that came with me were from 4 different states. Columbia, South Carolina, Tallahassee, Florida, Miami, Florida, Syracuse, New York, Rochester, New York. It was amazing. 1989, General Boomer, who was the 4th Bar Division Commander, 4th Bar Division Commander, called me to New Orleans. He and I got along real good. We compared, his son was as old as my son, and they were both hoodlums. They were. They were both street fighters, and they would get a lot of problems. But we compared notes. We had a ball. Then he told me, he says, "Mike," he says, when you assumed the command in your name, I went to ATD, which is active duty for training, for those of you that know not, because we were reservists. Okay. I went to the Marine Corps, I got drafted, and then I got ripped after Vietnam. I joined the 24 hours after I got released from active duty, I joined the reserves. I had to be a part of them. Even though I didn't know they existed when I got drafted, I fell in love with it. So he says, "I want you to concentrate on doing severe ATVs
We were taking 2 companies and one private tow to go to Fort Pickett. The rest of them would go to Cadiz. No liberty, no nothing. I went a month full of concentrating on moving to contact, occupying defensive positions. We said, we're tanks, we're tankers. Use of supporting arms and grunts. You're going to integrate grunts with everything you do. So you have attack infantry along with the tanks. And we did that, not knowing what was over the horizon. In 1980 and 1990, 1,017 Marines, as I said, and 17 sailors were activated. And throughout the eastern seaboard, every tank company had those Marines report to their drill centers. 98% of this battalion reported within 24 hours. That's amazing. Despite the dire predictions of the journalists and the people that were running the papers and the TVs, we were all supposed to die in place. There's no, and yet, these kids, 19 kids and guys too, I mean the older fellows too, they reported on it as they're supposed to. They came from colleges, dorm rooms, they came from welders and Chrysler, Ford, GM, they were teachers, I had cops. Yeah, John can tell you, he's a state trooper. He also had one who was an inmate. Yeah, we'll tell you. But that's okay. We came together and we reported to our drill centers. And then we went to what was called the SIA, which was the Station of Initial Assignment, which was Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, where every Marine goes anyway. So we huddled there, we got there through buses, we went from Rochester, the H&S company and the battalion staff were located from Rochester, New York, with the detachment of H&S people from all the other companies we had. We had Alpha Company from Fort Knox, Kentucky. We had Bravo Company from Syracuse, New York. We had Charlie Company from Columbia, South Carolina. We had Delta Company from Tallahassee, Florida. Plus we had an AT missile company from Miami, Florida. They all came. They all reported. And we all settled in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. And we went through all kinds of training. What were these? All these things. I hate this stuff. Anyway, smack it up as you go, Colonel. No, like I said, we occupied defensive positions, integration of it. Oh, I was no problem. Like I said, I had a head of 3 who he was an active duty 3. He was an I&I staff. I got a master gunnery sergeant, Hobart. We took him. And I got Major Jeff Texas, who was the assistant I&I of Rochester. I knew this kid was shit hot as a tanker and as a planner, and I needed him. So I took him on board too. So we all met at Camp Lejeune, went all through this training, NPC training, pistol requalifications, rifle qualifications, bore sight and zeroing, the whole 9 yards. Plus, we sent 4 air controllers to Yuma, Arizona for advanced training there. And we also sent an advanced party overseas to start looking at MPF shipping. Because that's where we're going to take your guys' tanks off the ships. It was started in the Reagan administration in 1980. These MPF ships, ships had F-60 Alpha 1s. On board those ships. The only thing, these were Vietnam-era tanks. You guys' tanks. The only thing upgrade was the sights in 1980. Otherwise, they were Vietnam-era tanks. We got them off the ships, and they were supposed to be LPI. Forget about it. They were not. No one touched those babies for at least a year. We couldn't run those hogs a mile without dropping and stopping because the fuel filters were being clogged up with sand. You couldn't get nowhere with it. So, this guy here, along with my Gunner Thompson and Warrant Officer Elhage, said, listen, Colonel, we got a shot here. We get these M60s out. We'll change the fuel filters on them, and we'll run JP1 on them. That's jet fuel. He said, we won't get anywhere. They did it. Then he said, we're going to paint them. There's a camel because they were green. And so we got them painted. Then we said to at that time in Tank Lejeune, General Keyes said to me, he says, hey, Mike, he says, you're going to be the tip of the spear. I said, no, really? That's freaking great, General. I don't know whether to cry or laugh. Listen to this. The TE of that second Div, which we were attached to, also contained the U.S. Army Tiger Brigade. They had 320 tanks in one brigade. That was more tanks than the Marine Corps had, and they had the duty or reserve combined. Plus, they had the second tank battalion attached. I'm saying to myself, I think they got a plan for us. It ain't good. And I had some good people behind me. One was Dennis Morgan, my XO, passed away very early on after we left. When he came back, I'm sure this was Buffalo. The bottom line is, he said, Mike, they want us to die in place and they want to save us. I said, that can't be true, not in my neighborhood. Well, whatever it was or not, but that's what had happened. I mean, that was the TE. It makes you think, it makes you wonder. Like I said, I'm no dummy. So, I turned, we looked at what we have at Camp Lejeune, we do what we're supposed to do, and we fly over to Red, and we get our tanks out, and we go into the desert, and we start training. Poor Dennis pulled up my ass, so he goes, I can't stand it. I have to go to every meeting. You're always with the troops. I said, so? He said, that's what you're going to do. He said, I can't stand it. Get out of here. No. I said, just go to the meetings. I'll stay with the troops. I screwed him on that one. But you know what? I had the opportunity to do it, and that's what I did. So anyway, we're in this desert environment. We're training. We're bore sight and zeroing. We're doing offensive operations, defensive operations. Now you guys, you performed your tank stuff in Vietnam in a completely different way. We were wide open. We had attached infantry. We had on-call air, on-call supporting arms. But I did not know also that we were supposed to reach 2 minefields for the fellow armed forces, the second Div. That was a surprise. And again, I'm no dummy. Okay, I turned to this guy right here in my OIC in my breech. This is the same guy that General Schwarzkopf lauded. He said he had never seen anything like this. You know what? We didn't either. But that's okay. That's okay. That's the way it was supposed to be. So we go and we train up. And we get these Marines and these sailors up to snuff, ready to go to battle with the Iraqi army. And they were huge. They had over 2,100 tanks in Kuwait alone. We were facing thousands of tanks between the crossing of the line of departure, which is out the Red, right? And then going to southern Kuwait. And we had thousands of tanks in front of us. We were surrounded. Plus we had 2 minefields to dig up. There was this warrant officer from the Army. He was in, I think he was in when Joshua Cleese was on board as a Lance Corporal. He was a warrant officer 5. You don't see that anywhere. This guy had more years than anybody. he looked at Warrant Officer Thompson and Colonel Aaron. He said, we have some farm equipment for you guys. This is for your breaching operations. Advanced plows, whatever. And until a year ago, they were top secret. We got them from the nation of Israel. And to this day, they're amazing. They're amazing people, amazing soldiers, and they came to our defense. And he said, you're never going to get these things welded on. You got 72 hours before you got the belt drops. No, look, 4 days. He said, don't worry about it. Dr. Thompson says, I got people from the welders from GM, Chrysler, Ford. I got them all over the place. I got things. These guys are reservists. And they got jobs to go back to. They can't screw around in this desert. They're going to get it done. And you know what they did? They attached all those farm equipment. And I'm not stealing the thunder, but because they're going to talk about it too. But they cleared 2 minefields, a mile wide each and a mile deep. And when they did this, we also had combat trains, logistic trains following in trace, first time ever. We also had a medical transport train following in trace to provide medical assistance for those that were beat up in the minefield. We lost a lot. We did have some mobility chills in the minefield. We lost some tanks. But we got these guys out. We pulled the tanks out with the only M88 retriever in country. We owned it. We owned it. And we got them out, and we got them back 24 hours later, welded the whole 9 years back in the plate again. The things that these guys and gals did, and these young Marines did, it was amazing. It never ceases to. That's what I'm saying. I'm not here to bamboozle anything. I'm not that kind of guy. I'm not smart enough. All I know is what we did there 31 years ago was a wartime fable. Jesus was on our side, and believe me, there is no atheist in the foxhole. I guarantee it. I've seen it happen. I've seen transformations of big tough guys on their knees saying to them, I need one more day. Give me one more day. And amen to that. Because I'll tell you, we were blessed. We should not have done what we did 31 years ago. Because it just wasn't in the cards. But apparently it was, and we did it for us. To this day, I just am amazed at what we did and how we did it, and we did it so professionally. You already got to do this. I'm going to turn it over to this is Colonel John A. He's my
First off, let me tell you, when I start running this presentation here, the slides, the first few slides are specific to you guys in Vietnam. And I understand that there's somebody in here that owns one of these tanks, or was the owner of it at one time. And so 48s. I started out 48s, went to 60s, and then the M1A1s. So what the colonel's trying to tell us here is his job was with the bringing people from all over the United States in 72 hours. The logistical miracle that these young Marines pulled off. And then when he got them overseas, what they did with them. I was a doctoral student at the time, and the semester was ending, and I just showed, I had been the commanding officer of Bravo Company in tanks. I slipped over to McCursick job at Marine Corps Reserve Support Command out in Kansas City while I was at school. I just couldn't drill every weekend. And left school and showed up and he hired me. So that's how I got it.
One good thing after another.
So anyway, the slides I'm going to have in here, they're in random order, okay? I'll set it up just to run randomly, 20 seconds on each slide, and we'll be done, okay? So let me get that started. And one of the things, I'm just going to start here, that's how the mileage from Camp Lejeune to Saudi Arabia. One of the things that we did was, I want to wait till I get to your slides. So, 20 seconds. Okay, so when you guys fought in Vietnam, for the most part, except a couple of different instances, you fought usually 2 tanks to a section, and that's the way you went out and supported. From most of the research that I did, that's the way you supported. Okay. How many Desert Storm veterans are in here? Okay.
Not a tanker.
No, but what? There's your who owns that one?
We got one.
There you go. That's yours.
That's my tank.
That's your tank.
That's my tank.
Okay.
Hey.
All right. All right. So what you guys did, you went out, you fought when the grunts walking right with you. You were ahead of them, they were behind, whatever. What the Marine Corps did after that, it saw that we can't continue to fight this way with armor, because the Army's going to take our job. So what they did is they learned to fight in a maneuver warfare battalion size. So Marine Corps at that time had 4 battalions, or 5 battalions of tanks, and we deployed 4 of those battalions, and a company on another one. It was an M5 tanks, it was an M1. And the thing I want to remind you is that you guys set the standard of how a 2-man tank section worked. The Marine Corps spent millions and millions and millions of dollars to train people to fight as a battalion, company and battalions. Then we get to Iraq, and we're right back to deploying platoons who sent out 2-man sections. After the march up, we went up with 4 battalions. After to fight the insurgency, we sent 2 tanks at a time. Got to Afghanistan, 2 tanks at a time. And I was there for both of them. I can tell you, I planned them on a couple of things, and I was absolutely in shock. No, we got to run it. No, we can't. We're too channelized. We're going to lose things. So what you guys did, the Marine Corps came 50 years later, came full cycle, right back to the 2-man sections. So okay, so we're going to start this as just a random. Like the colonel said, everybody came from college, from work. They got to Camp Lejeune, and the MPF system that the colonel was talking about is maritime preposition stuff. It was out in the Pacific Ocean, and we had war stocks up in Norway, and we had the maritime preposition stuff down in Florida. Popped it out. They sent it over to Saudi Arabia. 3rd Tanks was already there. They've been there since August. Their stuff was wearing out. Our stuff got there off of MPF, and then they were taking stuff from our companies and putting it on ship, following ship, and brought it over. I was there at the port when we were taking these tanks off, going off rail haze, etc. And as we were taking them off, the logistical thing here was just an absolute nightmare. You got these tanks off. First off, they didn't start because they'd been on ship for a year. Nobody bothered to start. Then you get them off. Say, okay, we slave them, get them off, and say, okay, you got to get them in, you got to get them LTI, get things going. Pop the sponsor boxes, not a tool set one. Somebody in the MPF has got a business someplace. It's not a tool set one for 53 tanks. That's all. It's civilian shipping. So it's got them. So if we pull all the rolling stock off, the ro-ros that went over, we sent Marines on board ships. They were supposed to get all the stuff ready to go. Civilian crews wouldn't let them touch it. So for 8 days, they floated, slept. as a good Marine will do. He's got the opportunity. So, anyway, I'm not gonna belabor that, but when we put together the breach force, and that's the only thing I can really speak to, because that's what the colonel had me doing. The colonel tells me I'm going to be the OIC of breach force, and I couldn't spell breach. So, and then he told me I was going to go into minefields. I said, we don't do that. Excuse me, we don't do that stuff. You know. However, we ended up doing it. As he said, I want to back him up. The Israeli aircraft industry sent contractors making huge money with it. These contractors they didn't come with any tools. They came to us and said, we're going to teach you how to put these mine plows, mine rakes, all kind of different stuff on these tanks. And it took them 9 hours to do one tank. 9 hours to put this. You got to tie it into the driver system, electronics. You got to be tied in, and you got to make it so that you can still seal the hatch and stuff like this. So anyway, Randy Jessup was a staff sergeant in the H&S company. He was watching him do this stuff. And as he's watching him do it, he says, I can beat that. He said, we can do this differently. And 10 minutes, got it, okay. So he said, he pushed the contractor aside, and he grabs a bunch of Marines, and it takes him 5 hours to do the next one. Well, then they're doing some more, and I'm saying, man, we're not going to be ready to train with these. We're not going to be ready to cross the other. I know the date, or the time frame. We're not going to be able to do this. He got my 28 tanks. He got them outfitted down to an hour and 30 minutes per tank. That stuff. and then we trained them. But our Marines from the breach force were a conglomeration of Marines from 2nd Tank Battalion, 8th Tank Battalion, with Kursick, tankers that had gotten out, and they were within their 2-year contract. And when you signed for 4 years, you had to stay 6. Well, these guys got pulled back in. They came over as replacements. And I remember getting all these guys together. We had one captain, one gunnery sergeant, a sergeant, Michael Brown, who we got out of jail.
Yeah. Where you find the best Marines.
And by the way, when he came back, they allowed him to, he was intoxicated, entered somebody's garage and fell asleep. They charged him with burglary. When he came back, they gave him, he pled guilty to trespass, time served. So he made up. He ended up retiring as a gunnery sergeant. Pretty dead hospital. But I sat with all these Marines, and I said, this is what our job is going to be. And I remember this kid from 2nd Tanks, he stood up and he said, yeah, that's kind of bullshit. He says, aren't you Reserve Marines? And I said, yes, we are. And he said, well, aren't we going to be back in reserve? That's why I volunteered. So anyway, tip of the spear going over. So we ended up going across the berm. Nobody could see. It was dark. You're going to see some stuff. And I look at the faraway looks on the communicators inside the C7. And these kids, they came together. They worked well. Go through the breach. I'm going through the breach, and I hear a radio conversation between the company commander and Bravo number. And I got to give the sergeant major here some time here, so I got to get going. No, because you did with all that stuff you did with getting me people. I hear this conversation between the master gunnery sergeant, tank leader, and the company commander. Master gunnery sergeant wants to get back with his company, but he's in rolling stock, and he's not going to go where the tanks are going. And he's begging him to let me cross over into your lane so I can come over there and travel with you, because I don't want to lose my company. Well, there was orders coming in, and he's screaming about, he's in a Humvee, It's offside the Humvee. I'm taking fire here, all this crap going on, and we're trying to get through the breach. We're trying to push gun companies now through the breach so that they can come out of the other end and lead the division. And so he said, it's the strangest communication I've ever heard on a radio. The company commander for Bravo Company, Jim Evans, says to top, he said, Master Guns, he says, did I understand you're taking fire? He said, yeah. He said, well, if it gets too intense, zip up your window. It's a plastic window. And you never heard another Master Guns said, just shut up, you never heard another word. So, anyway, came through, we lost 4 tanks in the breach, and I lost my 88. I had a Korean War tanker running my 88, and he came. He was 60 years old. He was hiding from the division because they tried to send him back. He turned 60. He couldn't get around.
That's what Marines do.
Yeah. So he came out with me, and Gunner Jake.
Yep.
And he came out, and I'm screaming at him on the radio when a tank hit a mine with the plow and stuff. And let me tell you something. 13,000 pounds per blade on a plow. And when I watched that thing, it picked 13,000 pounds up on that anti-tank mine and bent it right back to the cupola and then dropped it on the ground, and I thought another thing blew up. That's how powerful those things were. Okay, so I'm going to give the I can count. So anyway, we come out the other end, we lose this. Gunner Jay comes screaming out with the only 88 I had. For those of you that don't know, it's a retriever. For some of the ladies that may not know this. And the CWO4 comes out. He wasn't 40 yards into that minefield, and he blows up the only 88 we had. So I had nothing to pull these guys out. These guys sat in the minefield for days afterwards. AT mines in there, AP mines in there. They can't get off the tanks. So it was just that's the only portion of this that I can remember. Because when I got out the other end, he went into a defensive position. I climbed on top of a Mark 110 radio jeep, fell asleep with my mop suit on. Slept for 9 hours. I don't remember a thing. For 9 hours, I don't remember anything. The people went into the minefield. Vehicles went in the minefield, blew up, probably 75 yards. Never heard. Never heard. So anyway, Sergeant Major, I got to turn it over to you because there's very little time left.
And what time do we have?
3 minutes.
We have 2 minutes.
Make that 6 if you want.
Okay, all right, thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you very much. So I didn't have a hero status. I was the admin chief to make sure that everybody was paid and taken care of. One of the things that I hear about every day is that the families were either being evicted out of their homes or evicted out of apartments because our Marines were not getting paid. At that time, the Department of Defense was transitioning from mainframe systems to desktop computers and network servers. Those 2 systems, they never developed a gateway to transfer information. So when the 4th Marine Division, 8th Tank Battalion, transferred to 2nd Marine Division, the 4th Tank Battalion literally was vaporized. So inside of 30 days, we had to reconstruct with our SRPs 1,017 Marines of the 8th Tank Battalion in the 2nd Marine Division. So I'm going to jump forward. We were right before before D-Day. I was traveling through the desert with my driver. I was a gunnery sergeant at the time. They wouldn't let me drive, which was a good thing. And I'm driving through the desert, and all of a sudden I find these 3 white trucks and all these big white tanks. And I tell the driver, I said, white tents. And I said, take me over there. And it's a gentleman from AT&T. They're just putting up satellite dishes, putting up white tents, and these white trucks. And I actually said, who's the supervisor here? I said, can I talk to him? And he comes over, and I said, can I have a conversation with you? And I rolled out the map. I said, you are located here? He goes, yeah. He goes, yeah, we're right here. I said, you want to know where the bad guys are? I go, they're right here. He goes, really? And I said, yes, they are. And I said, I love your trucks, by the way. Nice tents. Needless to say, inside of a couple hours, they had the tents up, they had the generators running. We had tents full of phones. We could pick up the phone, and we were talking to Americans. It was great. So what we did was, I took my Marines in the middle of the night. We actually had to steal vehicles. No. We stole vehicles. We stole buses, and I would put my Marines. I had 36 Marines in my section, and we would take the SRVs and we'd take off at 2 o'clock in the morning. We'd go to this site, and we would pick up the phone. And we would call Kansas City. And by Social Security number, we got all our Marines paid. And we were the only unit that transferred from the 4th Marine Division to receive pay. It was great. And there's all the effort.
Bruce gave me 1 more minute. It's never going to be that long. It's going to be about 2 or 3. I can't. The milestones. I got to say this because, in spite of me, they did miraculous things. We were the first unit, elements of the 8th Tank Battalion were the first units to lead an active duty Marine division who had an Army brigade plus their own tank battalion attached to them through to my, that's never been happened before. Never. Okay, then we were the first ones in the minefields, elements of the 8th Tank Battalion. A guy, this young captain came up to me and was hitting on my C7, and we got him through the escape hatch because we were getting hit. He goes, I know where you are. I said, no shit, I know where I am. I said, I'm getting the shit knocked out of me. What's wrong with you, young captain? He says, no, I got you within 10 meters. Polaris. We were the first ones hooked up, which is a precursor to SATCOM and now GPS. We were the first ones to be locked on the Polaris. So they had them. See, I told you, Jesus is watching over us. Up there. But then we can go on and on. But the bottom line is that we had a lot of firsts, and we took care of business despite the fact that we were reservists. And as a result of being reservists, I think it was a huge offensive, what can I say, that went better because we were reservists, because we didn't stop at saying, oh, we can't do this. We did it and it worked. Sergeant Major Adams, Colonel Ahern, and myself want to thank Top Van Appelgorn again and Sergeant John Beer for inviting us to the Vietnam Tankers Association reunion. We are as proud of, I'm as proud of our Marines as I am proud of you to be a part of this honorable people here. It's just, I can't tell you what we are.
Paved the way for us.
Right?
Hoorah!
This is both bittersweet and ironic because recent events of the Marine Corps and the decision-making process has now taken our tanks away from us. Bittersweet in the fact that you guys and us guys fought with the last Vietnam tanks ever in a major battlefield. Ironic in that reservists are the ones that did it. This is amazing. And I hope, from the bottom of my heart, you tankers from Vietnam, I hope we did you proud. Thank you.
Just to what the Colonel said, when I returned as the Acting Sergeant Major of 3rd Combat Engineers, I was ordered back to Headquarters Marine Corps to report to the Commandant's conference room. When I got there was a 2-star general named Bill Groniger, a captain on active duty, a couple staff sergeants, and a bunch of O1s. And when the Commandant came in, it was Kelly, and he sat us down and he said, we don't have enough regulars and we smell smoke in the wind. Now, this is 1986. And I said, sir, can you be a little more definitive on what you mean by smoke in the wind? He says, I can't, First Sergeant, but here's what you're charged with. Hopefully, within no longer than 7 months, you can call every swinging dick reserve on active duty. And they're not coming on active duty for a PX call. They're going to spend 4 days on the rifle range. They're going to do land nav. They're going to do survival. They're going to do NBC training. They're going to work in their MOS for a couple of days, and then you're going to send them back, and they're going to be in a standby status. We trained pretty close to about 75,000 reserves in that 7 months. We fortunately had a few guys in federal prison and about 4 that had passed away and their wives are still collecting checks. But other than that, those reserves trained, and they trained hard. And thank God we have them, because we did not have enough regular Marines when Kuwait broke out. We needed every swinging reserve to be there. So, Colonel, to you and your troops, thank you. God bless you. All right, let's take a break. We got to switch the computer over for